Chair recognizes the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'm a new member of this committee, and as I've listened to the questions of my colleagues on both sides, I've come to the conclusion that there are those of us who I think basically take the view that you have advocated, that we have to act. And then some of the opposition comes from folks who don't believe it's necessary. They essentially deny the existence of the problem. But there are many good faith questions about what the impact will be on jobs, the dislocation, the economy. People like Mr. Burgess, Mr. Walden have asked questions that, frankly, I think those of us who are advocates have the burden of doing our best to answer. But at times it sometimes seems as though those concerns become not so much addressed to solve the problem, but to avoid action. And Senator, I'm going to ask you, based on your 30 years of service in the United States Senate, having to find common ground with people on the other side of the aisle, what advice do you have to those of us who share your view that this is a bill that has to be passed? How do we find a way to reach agreement with the good faith objections that come from people who don't agree with us quite yet?
Well, that's been the history of our Congress since its very inception. We are admired by the world for many reasons, and one is that we have the longest continuously surviving form of government, and it provides for healthy debate. It provides, to the extent possible, for full debate. Unfortunately, our chamber, the Senate, now has had less and less debate because of resorting to certain rules which are on the book, created by ourselves. But it's important that the views of those in opposition be heard, respected, because I think most people are conscientious who object to this. But we've got to find a way. You cannot just accept, throw up your hands. We can't do it. We just must do it. Maybe you're not going to, and I hope you get as much as you think you can, but you're not going to get the whole loaf. You're going to get a part of it. But you will have sent the signal across America that the Congress is ready to move forward on this issue. And that'll get the attention here at home, and that'll get the attention of the world.
Thank you. Mr. Gore, I want to ask you your thoughts on a couple of approaches that I think make sense to take in order to try to build some of these bridges. One is efficiency. You've talked about that. My view, and I have some aspects in this bill that say we start addressing this by efficiency. It's within our control. We've got a provision in the bill, small one but important one, to allow homeowners to get tax credits, businesses to get tax credits and incentives for saving. The more they save, the more of an incentive they get. It's the local jobs that you spoke about. I would hope that that would be a way of finding some common ground. And a second issue may be to incorporate into this legislation a monitoring device to basically ask these questions every 3 months or 6 months about what is, in fact, the job impact, because those are fair questions. And I want to get your advice and thoughts about suggestions you might have to try to provide some legitimate reassurance to legitimate questions that are raised about dislocation and economic impact.
Yeah. Well, I think the provisions of the bill in the current draft adequately and imaginatively address that question. I think there would be potentially massive job losses if we did not adopt this legislation. Because if we just continue on with business as usual, ignoring the warnings, and then just sit and wait until the oil prices go sky high again, that's what would cause the massive job losses. I think that the creation of jobs by this bill will far, far outstrip any losses that would be associated with it. I genuinely believe that.
Okay. And what do you think about having in the bill some provision to actually try to monitor that, some referee that is actually looking at the data? What's the impact of each provision of the bill in providing as we go along, some data that hopefully is credible.
Well, that sounds like a good idea to me. I know that there are provisions in the legislation now that require regular reports and regular analyses of several matters, some of which do relate to this. If they need to be fine-tuned, then maybe that's a good thing.
Okay. Thank you very much. Senator?
While I haven't read the whole bill, I have studied those portions I felt that would be addressed today, and particularly the area of national security. So I think you should monitor it in order to give the President the guidelines as to move forward with the throttle or pull back on the throttle.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back, but I just want to tell the Vice President that my office in 1404 Longworth, I believe, was your dad's. That's what they're saying when he was in Congress.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that. That's great.
I'm living in an apartment that you may be familiar with it's the Tennessee apartment in the Methodist House with Congressman Cooper.
Oh, great.
And I don't know if you left anything behind, but we'll check.
Not that I know of, but thank you.